Imagine if Wolverhampton, who are currently at the bottom of the table, somehow managed to win this season's Premier League title over top contenders like Liverpool, Manchester City and Arsenal. According to bookmakers, the odds of that are 2,500 to 1. Now, those weren't even the chances Leicester City had of winning the 2015-16 Premier League title. Their chances were twice as unlikely. In 2015-16 season, Leicester had no star players, no money, and the manager who saved them from a humiliating relegation had just resigned. They would be lucky just to remain in the Premier League at the end of the season, not to mention being title contenders. They had never won the Premier League in their history, and Gary Lineker, a Leicester fan and club legend, said it was practically impossible. He even promised to present Match of the Day on BBC Sport in his underwear if by some miracle it happened. And even the club's own manager said their sole goal for the season was avoiding the relegation zone. However, on May 2nd, 2016, 6 months after they were written off by their own manager, Leicester City Football Club defied the 5,000 to 1 odds and clinched the most astonishing title win in football history.
Lift the trophy to the skies! Leicester City are the champions of the Premier League! 5,000 to 1 shot!
Forcing Gary Lineker to make good on his word.
Here we go again, new season, new titles, new managers, new signings, but apart from that, nothing much has really changed.
Not in a million years did a football legend like Lineker actually think he would have to appear in his undies on national TV. It made no sense whatsoever. But how did a team with rejected players and an outcast manager manage to pull off winning one of the most prestigious titles in European football? To answer that, we need to go back to the end of the 2014-15 season.
Dilly din, dilly dong, come on!
This is Jamie Vardy! History maker! Has to be the greatest escape from relegation that the Premier League has ever known. Leicester City.
So, after being newly promoted to the Premier League, Leicester City remarkably escaped relegation by winning 7 of their last 9 matches.
But this has to be the greatest escape from relegation that the Premier League has ever known. Leicester City are staying on in the top flight of English football.
The club's manager, Nigel Pearson, had orchestrated this late improvement in form and saved his club from the disgrace of going back to playing second division football after just 1 season in the top flight division. But before the start of 2015-16, Nigel Pearson would step down as head coach. The club had just sacked his son, James Pearson, after his disgraceful involvement in a highly publicised incident involving 2 other players and hookers in Thailand during a pre-season tour.
But Nigel Pearson had been sacked by the board of directors, and Pearson had done such a fantastic job in rescuing Leicester and keeping them in the Premier League. I think the fans will be disappointed to see him go, but of course.
Leicester had lost their trusted manager and were suddenly in the market for a new coach. Ranieri wasn't the ideal choice for obvious reasons. His brief reign as Greece manager was one he'd rather forget, ending after just 4 games, and his return to the Premier League was expected to be more disastrous than his time at Chelsea. He was replaced at Stamford Bridge by Jose Mourinho, who infamously referred to Ranieri as a loser when he joined the Blues. Gary Lineker also shared that sentiment because he took to social media to show his displeasure after Ranieri was announced as Leicester's coach. On the other hand, he was just glad to be coaching in the Premier League again. His first order of business was getting a couple of new players. He signed 4 new players, including an unknown 24-year-old midfielder by the name of N'Golo Kante at a cost of £5.6 million. The already existing team was made up of, most notably, Jamie Vardy, Riyad Mahrez, Danny Drinkwater, club captain Wes Morgan, Robert Huth and Kasper Schmeichel in goal. Players whose collective market value didn't exceed £30 million, and who were either rejected or ignored by big clubs. But to everyone's surprise, Leicester was a pretty decent team when the season kicked off, going 6 games without a single loss. included a win against West Ham in the second week and a comeback from 2-0 at half-time to win against Aston Villa. This put them in the top 5 on the table, along with Man City, Arsenal and Van Gaal's Man United, who, it needs to be said, were a decent team that season. Leicester's early success was dismissed as beginner's luck, and this seemed to have been confirmed the very next week. They faced Arsenal, and a brace from Jamie Vardy was not enough to save the team from a shameful 5-2 defeat at home. After that game, Leicester were expected to go back to their losing ways. Their next game was against newly promoted Norwich City, so it was no surprise when they won 2-1. They had to face Southampton next, and that game saw Leicester trailing 2-0 at half-time. This certainly further supported the theory that Ranieri's team had run out of luck, but during the second half, Vardy was able to score a brace and secure a point for the Foxes. But even if his team was doing far more than even he expected, Ranieri was not satisfied. Italians are known for their defensive strategies, and the fact that his team had never secured a clean sheet since the start of the campaign didn't appeal to Ranieri.
Since I'm here, only one in friendly match, we maintain the clean sheet. Of course, I'd like to maintain for 9-10 times in this Premier League the clean sheet.
He urged his defence to tighten up and made them a promise of a gift if they could secure one clean sheet. The boys finally granted their coach wish. In their matchday 10 game against Crystal Palace, not only did they come away with the win from Jamie Vardy's goal, but they also conceded no goals for the first time in that season's league campaign. And Ranieri kept his promise. He took his players to a pizza place in Leicester City Square where they made their own pizza and feasted afterwards. Leicester City's league run would soon start to be a concern for other Premier League clubs. They went on to win their next 3 games against West Brom Albion, newly promoted Watford FC and Newcastle United, making it 13 league games with 8 wins and only 1 loss. This put the Foxes at the very top of the league with 28 points. The world of English football was curious about what secret tactics Leicester City was employing. They had spent only €49 million in the transfer window and were somehow topping the league over teams like Manchester City, who signed Kevin De Bruyne alone for €55 million and paid €49 million for Raheem Sterling with a total expenditure of €208 million. In response to the questions about his tactics, Ranieri said, "When speaking to the players, I realised they were afraid of Italian tactical approaches, and I always thought the most important thing a good coach must do is build the team around the characteristics of his players. So I told the players that I trusted them and would speak very little of tactics." But of course, it wasn't that simple. During his time at Chelsea, Ranieri was infamous for being a tinkerman. He made unusual rotations and often experimented with his formation. This is also thought to be what ended up costing him his job at Chelsea. And it looked like he learned his lesson because now at Leicester, he employed the opposite strategy. He settled on a starting 11 and picked the same starters every week. This gave Leicester the platform to perfect their 4-4-2 tactical approach built to hurt teams on the counter-attack. Possession-based tactics were already mainstream, so Ranieri devised a game plan that would deliver possession-obsessed teams into his hands. Leicester had some of the lowest possession stats in the Premier League that season, regularly losing the ball to opponents. The important factor was how proficient they were at using it when they had it, punishing teams who had given them any sort of space on the counter. As the season wore on, it became even more clear that Leicester was a force to be reckoned with. In their 14th league game against United, Jamie Vardy broke Ruud van Nistelrooy's record by scoring in 11 consecutive Premier League matches.
This is Jamie Vardy! History maker!
And in their first game of December against Swansea City, Riyad Mahrez put on a top performance and scored a hat-trick in a 3-0 victory. However, the next game was far more significant. Leicester welcomed Mourinho's Chelsea at the King Power Stadium on matchday 16. Chelsea were the defending Premier League champions, so a win against them would do Leicester City's confidence the world of good. The game saw Mahrez and Vardy get on the scoresheet again to pull a 2-1 win over Chelsea. That 2-1 defeat put Leicester back on top of the table, But for Mourinho, it was the final nail in the coffin. Just days later, Chelsea sacked him. Meanwhile, not long after the result against Chelsea, Leicester players were starting to believe. Riyad Mahrez admitted he spoke with Kante about it, saying, "We just said, imagine if." We didn't go into much more. We just said that, imagine, but that was only for about 30 seconds, and then we would say, no, let's stay focused and let's see. They still had a long way to go, with 22 more games to the end of the campaign. One game after Chelsea, they would go on to lose at Anfield and come away with a goalless draw against City and Bournemouth. They soon had to face City again and then Liverpool in back-to-back matches. It wouldn't have made sense to think Leicester City would win any of those matches, but they went on to win both. The 3-1 win away in Manchester showed that top opponents were still not taking Leicester seriously, and it was only after then that other teams started thinking of a solution. Teams adapted their playing style to try and stop Leicester's deadly counter-attacking football. Vardy went 8 games without a goal from open play as defences sat deeper and prevented him from charging in behind. Ranieri's response to this was to redouble his team's defensive efforts. If teams were going to try and shut them down, then their opponents certainly weren't going to score either. Leicester would wait it out and steal a winner when the chance presented itself. And it worked. Between February 27th and April 3rd, they won 5 of their 6 Premier League games by a 1-0 scoreline. Leicester City was now undoubtedly in the Premier League potential EPL champions conversation, but Ranieri still refused to give himself hope. His goal at the start of the season was simply to avoid the relegation zone, which they had successfully done at that point. He made it known that his new goal was Champions League qualification, and only by match day 34, when Leicester was sitting top of the league with 5 points ahead of Tottenham, that's when Ranieri admitted that his team was dreaming of a title win.
Hey man, we are in Champions League. We are in Champions League, man.
That was my next
Dilly din, dilly dong, come on.
Now we go straight away to try to win the title, only this remains. I wanted 79 points and we have to fight more now, he said. They won 4-0 against Swansea, which meant a win a week later at Old Trafford would crown them Premier League winners. However, they only came away with a draw against United, which now meant their title hopes lay in the hands of second-place Tottenham. Tottenham needed nothing less than a win in their next match to keep their own title hopes alive. The title decider was played on May 2nd, 2016, a London derby between Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur at Stamford Bridge. Leicester's whole squad had convened to watch what they hoped would be Chelsea, refusing to take a loss at their home stadium. Much to Leicester's disappointment, Tottenham were 2 goals up at the break thanks to Harry Kane and Son. After the break, however, Gary Cahill pulled one back for Chelsea, and Eden Hazard, who had come on as a substitute, scored a dazzling late equaliser to end Tottenham's title hopes.
Glorious goal! Leicester's goal! Leicester City are 7 minutes away from being champions of England, courtesy of Eden Hazard.
Leicester had completed one of the greatest sporting stories of all time, becoming the champions of England for the first time in their history. A club that had absolutely no right to dream of anything more than merely surviving relegation in the Premier League had somehow stolen the title away from the clubs thought to be Premier League giants. An unfancied club with an outcast manager, rejected players, and one of the tightest budgets in the division had somehow managed to conquer English football.